From Toronto, Canada, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio, AM 740.
And welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Come on in, weary traveler, hang your cloak on a peg, grab a stool, and come gather around the fire. There are stories to be told, and you are among friends. Historian, philosopher, writer, mystic, 32nd degree Freemason, Robert W. Sullivan IV is here to reveal esoteric and occult symbols in cinema. And he's here for the full 2 hours. This is going to be good. Carlos Cagina is my technical producer, and Ryan White is the live stream producer. And yes, we are live streaming on my YouTube channel, Strange Planet. And if for any reason Big Tech Gestapo takes any of my YouTube videos down, you can always head over to rumble.com, and Ryan uploads every episode there, rumble.com, usually within a few days. And then when you get to rumble.com, search under channels for Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. Before we get rolling, if you've just subscribed recently to my newsletter, Inner Sanctum, in the last few days, you've probably missed my June edition. That went out a few days ago. And that was the final edition of Inner Sanctum until September. Inner Sanctum, is my free monthly newsletter, is going into summer hiatus just for a couple of months. But you can continue to subscribe, and then you'll be all set when I start publishing again in September. Go to strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca, and click on the Inner Sanctum banner to subscribe. I just need an email. It takes about 5 seconds. And again, delivered right to your email inbox for free, but on summer hiatus until September. Another quick note, I'll be hosting Coast to Coast AM next Saturday, July the 3rd. Saturday night into Sunday morning. Go to coasttocoastam.com for more information and to find a list of radio stations that carry this amazing late night talk radio program. Well, everyone's favorite Freemason is here, and he strikes again with Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. Applying his expert and objective observations, Robert W. Sullivan IV analyzes a new slate of movies revealing Tinseltown's esoteric and dark secrets. Some of the films dissected in this new volume are The Mummy from 1932, The Witch 2015, Lolita 1962, Joker 2019, Dark City, The Red Shoes, Midsommar, Eraserhead, Pan's Labyrinth, Chris Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, The Shape of Water, and the vast mythology of Twin Peaks, among countless others. From Gnosticism to Freemasonry to Black Magic and Kabbalah, no rock is ever left unturned with Robert's books. Robert is a historian, philosopher, antiquarian, jurist, lay theologian, writer, mystic, radio TV personality, showman, best-selling author, CEO, and lawyer. And the author of 5 books, The Royal Arch of Enoch, Cinema Symbolism 1, 2, and A Pact with the Devil, which was a work of fiction. And his latest, as I say, is Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. Hey, Robert, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Hey, Richard. Thanks for having me on. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to tonight's show.
Likewise. Now, just kind of on a personal note, you're Robert Sullivan IV. So, can you tell me a little bit about your ancestors?
Sure. Robert W. Sullivan I, I never knew. And Robert W. Sullivan II died when I was very young. My grandfather, he was a Freemason, but I did not know him that long. He died when I was about 9 years old. Maybe 10. My father is still around. He is doing well. And then of course me. So, you know, my father's doing very well. He's of course in his mid 70s now. And, but,
were they all Masons? All Masons?
No, my great grandfather and grandfather were. Robert W. Sullivan first and second were Freemasons. The third, my father, is not. It skipped over him. I am. and then some of the ancestors on my mother's side were Masons as well. So senior and junior were Masons. In fact, I believe senior may have been a Grand Master. One of them on my mother's side was a past master. Excuse me. He ran the lodge. Senior Robert W. Sullivan Senior and Junior were Masons. My father is not one.
All right. Now, in your vast resume, you're also listed as an antiquarian. What is an antiquarian?
It's essentially a fancy word. It's another way of saying historian, essentially. It's just a more fancier word. I've always kind of liked it. It's a word that you see thrown around with people like Elias Ashmole, the Freemason and Rosicrucian enthusiast. So I just kind of appropriated the word, but in truth, it's probably just a fancier way of saying historian.
All right. So you and I have talked about this subject matter a number of times on Coast to Coast and on my podcast. But so I'm going to, go over some things that we've covered before. First of all, how many times do you watch a movie before you've sort of totally unpacked it in terms of the esoteric and occult symbology until you basically found it all?
Yeah, it's a great question. The truth of the matter is, it's probably never ending. I've watched. I mean, I remember mentioning this to you. There are some movies even to this day that I still put on, and it's always with a little trepidation that I'm going to see something new, and it's always the case. You think you've pinned down everything, and then sure enough, something new comes up that you missed, or you didn't quite pick up on. Something like that. Like, for example, I mean, I'll give you an example of this. One of the movies that I dissected in the new book was the Halloween 2018 movie. And the trailer for the new one, Halloween Kills, just dropped the other day. And because I really was impressed with the trailer and I really look forward to seeing it. I'm a huge fan of the Halloween movies. And because of that, I went back and I watched the first one. I have the 2018 movie here on Blu-ray. I have some of the other Halloweens as well, but I watched the 18 movie, and this was again a movie that I broke down in the latest book. There's loads of like deja vu, overlap. You get the feeling that the filmmakers were familiar with the Mandela effect, and were trying to incorporate a lot of the past movies into this new one with overlapping scenes, such as so on and so forth. And when I was watching it. There's a scene at the very beginning of it where Michael is in the asylum, and these two reporters come in to talk to him, and this one inmate screams out "Figaro" twice. He's
Figaro.
a mental patient. Yeah, and he screams out twice, and I was always perplexed by that. And even when I was doing the book, I couldn't quite figure that out. I thought maybe it has something to do with music. Of course, everyone knows the Barber of Seville, the Mozart opera,
Right.
and I couldn't quite pin this down. And the other day when I was watching it, I just started Googling, and I tried to figure out, I mean, it must have some sort of meaning. And sure enough, it's a slang word. It's very, very rarely used, but it is a slang word meaning interloper or an interferer. And what it is referring to is the reporter holding up the mask of Michael Myers. He's sort of, interfering, and he's, provoking this guy to go on this kill crazy rampage again. So that's what it means. It's basically a reference to the reporter holding up the mask, that he's agitating Michael again to go out, break out and kill. So again, I always usually have to watch them at least 4 or 5 times. I have to watch them on Blu-ray to be able to really pin them down, because you need to pause it, fast forward, go back forward to pick up on things. Usually 4 or 5, maybe 6 times usually does it. 3, 2, depending on how complex or detailed the movie is or how sophisticated the filmmaker is. Sometimes maybe just once or twice. Again, it just depends on the sophistication of the filmmaker. But there is that slate of movies that there's 1 or 2 movies out there that seems like every time I watch it, I pick up on something new.
And why do directors or screenwriters or producers insert these, I call them Easter eggs, little things that you uncover? Why do they put them in there in the first place?
Yeah, I use the term Easter egg also in the book. The motivations are many. I guess ultimately what it boils down to in my opinion, is it's a form of enhancing the movie, and it really casts the movie into the mythological atmosphere. It goes from more than just being celluloid and pictures on celluloid, where it becomes this transcendent piece of artwork, really, informing and shaping pop culture. That's what these, Easter eggs, these symbols, these themes, these undercurrents, because it's a whole slate. It's a whole, symphony of things that these filmmakers use. It's not just symbols. It's people, it's colors, it's music, it's themes, undercurrents. These things, when you get these into the hands of a very knowledgeable filmmaker, or producer, or writer, it really, in my opinion, enhances the movie. And I've always felt that when you come across these movies, not all of them have it, of course, but when you have an adroit filmmaker, or producer, or filmmaking crew, it really can transform the film into a piece of artwork, and just really make it transcendent. That's what I think.
But most people, Robert, most people are not as well read as you are. I
Right.
certainly am not. And so in order for that, those layers, the symbols, the symbology, the colors, the themes, the music, the receiver, the viewer has to understand, or does it affect us? I mean, much of this would probably just wash right over me, and I wouldn't notice some of these esoteric symbols. Or does it matter? Does it work on a subconscious level? Does it awaken, I don't know, certain archetypes that I might not even be aware of?
Absolutely. It definitely works. It works on both levels. It works on a subconscious level because, as you said, most people aren't aware of it. It becomes very interesting when you do become aware of it, and then you could start looking for it and seeing it for yourself. That was one of the motivations in writing these books. But no, it definitely plays on the subconscious level when you're dealing with things like the archetypes. I mean, these are, you read the Hermetic philosophers. This is part of, the archetypes are part of the world's soul, connecting you with the divine. The meditation on them brings you closer to the Godhead. And, it can be used to enlighten. Some people say it can be used to manipulate. I've never really found it to be that way. But many people believe that the meditation on the archetypes brings you closer to the Godhead. You find this in the works of people like Carl Jung, Emanuel Schwettenborg. So it's really, I was on a show. Well, it's one of the shows you host. It was Coast to Coast AM, and I was on with George Norrie. This was one of the first times I was on, and during the question and answer session, I had a screenwriter call in to the show. And he actually said, when I write scripts, or when I'm doing this, he said, I concentrate on the archetypes, the son, the hero, the father, the villain, the shadow, the mother, the child, the lovers, the tarot. This is something that I'm constantly working with to, embed into the subconscious mind and to draw out from the subconscious mind. So, these filmmakers and writers use it too. I mean, you'll find these characters, these archetypes pervading the works of William Shakespeare. You'll find it in the works of Nathaniel Hawthorne, the 19th century American writers, Poe, Herman Melville. So, it's when you're crafting this stuff. It's something I use when I write books. It's something that artists are aware of, and they use it in their art to encapsulate, not encapsulate, to help put forth their artwork and to make it receivable to the person viewing it or reading it or watching it.
Now, to some, Robert, Hollywood has this dark underbelly, and people believe that within Hollywood there's all sorts of horrible, unspeakable things happening, and there is mind control, and there is, what I'm referring to.
Right, sure, of course.
Do you think that some directors, writers, producers are trying to use occultic symbols, esoteric symbols, for dark purposes? And I don't know how that would work. I mean, people talk about, celebrities flashing Illuminati symbols and so forth.
Sure.
Are they using films in this way? Is that possible?
It's of course possible. it's certainly definitely possible. I mean, there is always, when you're dealing with this stuff, there's always a light and a dark side to it. Sort of, a Manichaean take on it, light and dark. They're interdependent, of course. And sure, certain people, you could always craft an argument that this is being used for some sort of darker purpose. Of all the movies I've watched, and there's many of them, at no time did I ever feel like I was being mind controlled. I think some of this material is being used for sensationalist purposes, shock value, as it were. I think that's certainly an explanation for some of it. Certainly, in my opinion, where you get into the darker undercurrents of this stuff is where, we've talked about this before, is where these movies seem to be prophetic. They seem to be prophesizing different events.
Right. Predictive programming.
Predictive programming. I mean, how is this happening? That's kind of the $1,000,000 question, because I do find it hard to believe that Hollywood directors are using crystal balls to gaze into the future and then putting things into their movies. That, to me, strikes me as far-fetched and doesn't really kind of add up as a lawyer. I don't see any real reason for that. But nevertheless, I mean, we clearly have this happening. I mean, you can document it, all over the place. I mean, whether
right,
it's
we'll get into that. We
Sure,
will get
okay.
into that. We'll talk about predictive programming, and you do have a very an interesting theory as to what's actually happening there.
Sure. I mean, but I mean, even in Hollywood, I mean, you do have, I mean, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Hollywood does make some very dark movies also. Not all of them, of course. I mean, they've made plenty of enlightening movies and uplifting movies, but they do make dark theme movies as well. So yeah, I mean, there is always, I mean, it's like everything else in this world. It's always multifaceted. It's complex. Nothing is ever 100% good or evil. It's always shades of gray, some darker than the others. This is the way, at least in my experience, the world works.
Well, yeah, and we will come back to predictive programming, but I was just going to say that, one of the theories is that somehow at a certain level in Hollywood, because they control the culture, they have some sort of a pipeline into, I don't know, the national security state or the highest levels of the deep state, if you will, and they are given information before some cataclysmic event beforehand in order to do what? Maybe normalize it in people's minds, or to prepare them, or in some twisted way, like an artist, but he can't sign his name to this heinous act, and so or maybe there's some unwritten code that they have to let people know what they're doing. You've heard all of these theories.
Sure. I mean, Hollywood has worked with the government before. This is nothing new. I mean, I don't know if they'd be received. For starters, I mean, it presumes a lot. It presumes also that the government is orchestrating these events, and of course, that's speculation. But certainly, I know for a fact that the X-Files, when that aired, many of the scripts were reviewed by the FBI for accuracy. I mean, you get into the World War II. I mean, you have movies. Yankee Doodle Dandy was war propaganda. The early Sherlock Holmes, Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce movies put out by Universal, the first couple were war propaganda, for the Allied nations. This is, I mean, no question, intentional. So, the government's involvement with Hollywood, is documented. I mean, my God, Walt Disney was a spy for J. Edgar Hoover. So, it's not unheard of for Hollywood to be working with, the government. The idea, though, that the government is crafting these events and then sending them to Hollywood, I don't know. I'd have to see a little more evidence of that. Like I said, it presumes that the government is in fact doing that. But it's certainly something is going on. That's irrefutable, because there's been too many instances in cinema where something is shown and then it happens in reality. So, like I said, clearly there is something to this. What it is, I don't think anyone can certainly pin down 100%. Of course, I have an I put forth sort of more of a rational explanation for it, but it is creepy, and it is uncanny, to say the least.
And it's something that we could go on and talk about all night. And
Sure.
we won't talk about it all night, but we will dedicate some time for it. Robert W. Sullivan IV, Cinema Symbolism 3, and we'll take a quick time out. When we come back, we'll give some examples. We'll talk about the different types of occult symbolism, whether we're talking about Gnosticism or Hermeticism, Kabbalah, even Christian symbology will work its way into Hollywood cinema. Back with more of our conversation. We'll also open up the phone lines in the second hour. So keep your powder dry until the second hour. Just sit back, enjoy the conversation, and then we'll make the phone lines available to you for questions and comments a little bit later. Back with more of The Conspiracy Show right after this. Stay with us.
Curiosity, or did the devil make you do it? Whatever the reason, welcome back to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To talk to Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon-60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Syrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Syrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. Since the pandemic, life has changed for all of us. 25% of us are consuming more alcohol and cannabis. Even though we're stuck at home, police are seeing an increase in impaired driving charges and the devastation that goes with it. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired and to encourage your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
A message from Jamie Lynn Hancock of Mad Canada.
The truth is not out there. It's right here. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
Welcome back. Robert W. Sullivan IV, historian, philosopher, antiquarian, jurist, lay theologian, writer, mystic, the author of 5 books, including his latest, Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. So just so people understand what we're on about here, when we talk about different types of occult symbolism, let's start with one example, Gnosticism. Just explain what Gnosticism is very briefly, and then give us some examples of Gnostic symbology, some films where we would find Gnostic symbology. Did we lose Robert?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there we are. Sorry, no worries.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Okay, so just so people understand the different types of symbology. So there's Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Enochian symbology, Kabbalah. Let's start with Gnosticism. So
Yeah,
give us explain what Gnosticism is, and then give us some examples of a film where we'd find Gnostic symbology.
Sure. Gnosticism is a Christian heresy that goes back to about the 2nd century, and it overlaps with Christianity, but it has a different take on it. It has to do with it's a theology, a doctrine that has to do with awakening one's sort of inner self coming to consciousness, to know thyself, as it were, which is also the maxim of Hermeticism, is to know thyself. It has three fountainheads of thought, three philosophers or theologians, I guess some would call them heretics, that expound Gnostic philosophy, and they're Mani, Valentinus, and Basilides. Those are the three fountainheads of Gnosticism. Mani is the easiest one. He is light and dark. It's sort of Zoroastrianism. The universe is composed of light and dark entities, agencies going against each other. This is good versus evil. This is light and dark. This is ignorance and knowledge. This is in cinema. This would be the least interesting movie because it's the easiest to spot. So this would be Star Wars with Jedi versus Sith, or Harry Potter with Harry Potter versus the Death Eaters. The next one is I'll skip over Valentinus because I'll go to him last because he's the most interesting. The next one is Basilides, and he kind of I guess you probably have to talk about Valentinus first. He basically says that the way to get to the Godhead, that the way to get to the spiritual Godhead is through ignorance, is through willed oblivion, essentially. And I guess at this point I should explain what some of the Gnostic doctrines are. Essentially, it holds that there is this spiritual hidden God out there, what is known as the monad, and it has emanations. And one of them is this divine feminine, Aeon is what they're called Sophia. And she tries to study and understand the monad, which is a no-no. You can't do that. Essentially, she is cast out of this place called Pleroma, which would equate to Christianity's heaven. And she's cast down into matter, into what's known as the Kenoma. And as she is being cast down, she births this deity known as the demiurge, which is a Greek word meaning utility man. And this God fashions our universe. It's an error. It's created in mistake. And our reality is the product of this lesser God known as the demiurge. And he rules the universe. But of course, as anyone familiar with this will tell you, he does not rule it alone. He has this coterie of angels and demons known as archons, who help him rule the universe, but they of course rule it imperfectly. And one of the purposes of the archons is to keep humankind asleep, is to keep them unconscious, is to keep them in stasis, keep them ignorant. And what these three Gnostic philosophers were trying to do was to come up with a cosmology and a system where humankind could awaken out of the slumber and obtain this spiritual divinity and return back to this monad, this Godhead. And what Basilides said was the way to do this is through willed ignorance, is to be completely stupid, and to live in oblivion. It's a form of Zen Buddhism, essentially. Is you meditate, you sit in a corner, you don't do anything. Opening your eyes, you're participating in the demiurge's reality. Speaking, you're participating in the demiurge's reality. You to essentially do nothing. The movie that reflects this is the movie by David Cronenberg called Existenz, where the characters by the end of the movie, this is Jude Law and Jennifer Jason Leigh, are just so completely stupid and out of it, they don't know what reality they're even living in anymore. The main one, and this is the movie that everyone likes, is the Valentinus thread. And he is the guy who is putting forth what I just said, that there is this demiurgic creator of the universe that is inherently flawed, and that humankind needs to escape it, and you have to escape the archons. And what he runs contradictory to Basilides. He said the way that humankind can awaken their consciousness and return back to the monad is through wisdom. The more knowledge the human being requires, the more consciousness he has. This is frowned upon by the demiurge and the archons because they want to keep humankind asleep, and this allows the soul to transcend after death and return to the monad. And of course, this is reflected in Christianity. This is reflected in Gnosticism and Hermeticism and in Kabbalah. This is what are called like these celestial spheres. In Kabbalah, they're known as the Sephirot. In Hermeticism, they're known as the seven governors. and in Christianity, they're known as the celestial hierarchies, and they overlap. And what they essentially say is that when the soul dies and it has transcending to heaven, it passes through these Kabbalistic spheres. This would be the Sephiroth. In Hermeticism, it's the seven governors. In Christianity, they're known as the celestial hierarchies. This comes from the works of a character called Pseudo Dionysius, the celestial hierarchies. This was accepted by Thomas Aquinas. And what these celestial hierarchies are levels of spiritual purification, that the smarter the person was on earth, the easier it will be for the spirit to pass through these celestial hierarchies and return to the Godhead. The problem is, and this is in Kabbalah and in Hermeticism and even in Christianity, is again, these hierarchies are guarded by these archons, and you have to navigate your way through past these archons in order to return to the Godhead.
All right. So if we look at a movie like The Matrix,
this would be your Valentinius thread.
All right. So everyone, unbeknownst to them, is actually, asleep.
Correct.
And they're hooked up to this machine, and they're being basically utilized for their energy, right? Their life force.
Absolutely correct. This would be the Matrix, Dark City would be your prime examples of the Valentinian Gnostic thread. The Truman Show, you could throw this in also, where you have the architect. We'll stick with the Matrix. So you would have the architect, the creator of the false reality. He turns up in part 2. This would be your demiurge. This would be your demiurgic artificer, the fashioner of the false reality, the material realm. You would have the people who are trying to obtain consciousness. This would be your Valentini, the person who would be in Valentinius's cosmology, the Jesus Christ figure is the person sent down from the monad, trying to awaken everybody. And of course, this is he's heralded by this pagan god known as Hermes Trismegistus. So in the Matrix movie, you'd have Morpheus would be the Hermes Trismegistus analog. He's the one prophesizing the one. And of course, this would be Neo. This would be the Gnostic Christ, who's coming down to awaken everybody to this false reality.
So Morpheus is like John the Baptist in the Christian. He's the forerunner.
Yeah, exactly. He is in comparative religion. John the Baptist is Hermes. So the Morpheus character is the Hermes Trismegistus, wisdom bringer, enlightener, prophesizer of Jesus Christ. If you read the Hermetica, these dialogues by Hermes Trismegistus, allegedly written by him, he prophesizes the coming of the Son of God. So the Morpheus character would be the prophesizer, the herald of the coming of the one. Neo would be the Gnostic Christ, who's coming down to awaken everybody to the false reality. You have the demiurge would be the architect. You have the archons would, of course, be the agents. This is the guardians of the false reality who are trying to keep everybody asleep, keep everybody in stasis. And then you would have, the character of Trinity would be the Sophia, the divine feminine character, who is, the Sajiji was young, the unification with the masculine, to obtain this higher Godhead to help awaken everybody up. And you'll see this in the movie. I mean, the Neo, when he's introduced, is referred to as Jesus Christ. You have the whole idea, the Lewis Carroll reference to Alice in Wonderland. Again, the Alice in Wonderland story is a story of Gnostic epiphany, where Alice goes underground to have her great awakening. And again, this would be reflected in Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy goes on this journey to the magical realm to have her great awakening, which for her is there's no place like home. For little Alice, it's the world of adults is no good. It's just basically make believe.
Does this mean necessarily that all of these directors or screenwriters in each of these cases were Gnostics? They were adherents to Gnosticism?
Absolutely. I think you could definitely say that. I mean, you clearly have, the strong Gnostic thread in the Matrix. I do not believe it is mistaken or unintentional. I believe it is intentional. And like, what makes this even more curious is from the years right at the turn of the millennium, And you could probably craft an argument that's maybe syncs with the age of Pisces going to Aquarius. You had this slate of Gnostic movies released. I mean, it's all right in that time frame from about 97 to 01, where you had this Hollywood just pushing out one Gnostic movie after another, whether it be The Matrix. It's all the ones we know and love. I mean, it's The Matrix, The Truman Show, Dark City, Existenz, Donnie Darko, Vanilla Sky, 13th Floor, Minority Report to an extent. You had Hollywood just pushing this incredible slate of Gnostic films, all in this narrow time frame.
Robert, I got to take a timeout. We'll pick this up on the other side.
Yeah,
Robert W. Sullivan III, Cinema Symbolism 3, and we'll get to more of this conversation in about 2 minutes. Stay with us.
If you're sure your phone isn't tapped, call now. 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Hi, my name is Liliana.
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
No cost to them. And that is simply because our professional advisors get paid directly by the financial institutions that we work with.
And what is the best way for people to contact you should they wish to avoid programs?
For more information and to book your free consultation, you can email us at info@avoidprobate.ca, or you can call us toll free at 1-844-667-7628.
And don't forget to join us each Sunday morning at 8 a.m. right here on Super Radio, so you too can avoid programs.
Ontario, do you feel that Honda feeling? That 2021 Honda Civic feeling? That windows down feeling? That exceptional handling, smooth ride feeling? That $3,000 in cash incentives on all remaining 2021 Civic sedan models feeling? That loaded with standard features like Honda Sensing Technologies feeling? That Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on all models feeling? That visit HondaOntario.com feeling? Great, because the Get That Honda Feeling event is on now. Feeling. Taxes extra.
Keeping an eye on the New World Order. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled, with writer, mystic, philosopher, antiquarian, Robert W. Sullivan III, or the fourth, sorry, Robert W. Sullivan IV. Alchemical symbolism. What is alchemical symbolism?
Right. So an alchemical movie is generally one where it doesn't involve turning lead into gold. Although you do have the movie Goldfinger, which is just that. That's probably one of the godfathers of the alchemical films, where he's not turning lead into gold, but he's messing around with gold, trying to make it his stock more valuable, and the
right. He wants to make it radioactive, right? He wants to make gold radioactive so that his gold will skyrocket in value.
Correct. So in that form, he is an alchemist. I mean, he's got his little philosopher's stone there with the radiation device, the dirty nuclear weapon. But generally, what I define an alchemical movie is, it usually involves the protagonist transitioning from one thing to another, from one sense of self into something completely different. This usually, there's something at the beginning of the movie, and by the end of the movie, there's something completely different. It's usually a profound change, and it's usually very negative. Sometimes it's positive. It's a little different than Gnostic Epiphany movie, where, like, at the end of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's still the same character, but she's just wiser. So that's really more of a Gnostic film. The alchemical movie is something like Black Swan or The Shining, where the Jack Torrance character starts out as kind of this failed writer, or maybe struggling writer is the better descriptor. And by the end of the movie, he's a full-blown psychopath. Same thing with Black Swan, where she's sort of this frustrated ballerina at the beginning of it. And by the end of it, she is this sort of psychotic bird creature, as it were. So those are, in my estimation, alchemical movies. They all generally, I'm sorry, did you jump in there?
No.
But they generally follow, if you have the eye to see this, they follow a certain color scheme that the good alchemical films always seem to follow, and that is in Renaissance alchemy. There was these four phases of alchemy that are reflected, and they're also psychological. Carl Jung equated them to psychology, and it's very potent. And these filmmakers are very aware of it, because a lot of the archetypes revolve around this. Not all of them. The villain usually always revolves around this. And if you become familiar with these color schemes, these Renaissance alchemical color schemes, the alchemical movies really stand out. Because 99% of the time, these colors are always represented in some form or fashion.
Give me an example of that. These color schemes.
Twin Peaks is one of the best examples of this, of them all. The colors are black, white, red, and yellow. And those are not the order they go in. The first phase is the black, followed by the white, then the yellow, and some leave out the yellow. That's sometimes left out, and then the red is the finality of it. Twin Peaks is a great example of this, where the TV show, the original TV show in 1991, was very alchemical, where it was the whole idea was the Black Lodge and the White Lodge. Those are two of your colors. You have to integrate your soul to become whole, and this is what's, it's the Negredo, which is the black, the Albedo, which is the white, and the finality is the Rubedo, that's the red. And if you pay attention to this, it's right off the bat, the Audrey Horne character, played by Cheryl Finn, wears the black and white shoes, and she takes them off and puts on the red high heels. And this is the whole function. This is foretelling the whole thing. Is the whole purpose of the Black and White Lodge is for the soul to undergo this alchemical transition, the positive with the negative in the black. This is explained by the Hawk character, the Indian police chief. Or sheriff, as it were. This is the whole function of the White and Black Lodges, is to integrate the soul, the positive with the negative, White and Black Lodges, the Albedo with the Negredo, to produce the finality of the Rubedo, the red. And this is one of the reasons why red saturates Twin Peaks.
Interesting, but again, that would wash right over me. I would not know the significance of those colors. But you're saying that these are somehow subtly affecting my subconscious.
Correct. This is Gnostic thought. A lot of the Renaissance alchemists took their cues from the Gnostics. And again, when you're dealing with this is psychology. This is what Jung said is straight psychology. In cinema, the Negredo phase. This all is ultimately the villain. This is what he would call the shadow self. This is Darth Vader. This is an archetype. The unification. The albedo. The one phase is the moon, the whitening. This is the feminine. The yellow is the sun. This is the masculine. The rubedo is the finality. This is the unification of the sun and moon. These are our archetypes. Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, James Bond, the Bond girl. These are all archetypes lurking in your subconscious mind that you're not even aware of, and these filmmakers are tweaking them, twisting them, tinkering with them to make you watch their show. Oh, this is really interesting. Why is she putting on red, taking off her
Right.
black
Okay,
and white
Robert, I
shoes?
got to jump in. This was a,
Sure.
a short segment. We'll come back
Oh,
and
yeah, of
discuss
course.
further. Robert
problem.
W. Sullivan IV. And the book is Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. And we'll do some more unveiling right after this.
You want the truth? You can handle the truth. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To get the truth, call Richard now at 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of Bioastin. That's 75 capsules. Now, Bioastin, or astaxanthin, is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
Having your vehicle treated at Crown every year will put money back in your pocket. An annual treatment from Crown Rust Control helps your vehicle to look better, last longer, and maintain a higher resale value. Crown even helps reduce maintenance costs. How about that? With Crown, it's money saved, not money spent. For more information, visit crownwithak.com. Crown. Protect, maintain, save.
Every day, more and more people across Ontario are receiving their COVID-19 vaccines. Health Canada-approved vaccines are conveniently available in hospitals, doctors' offices, pharmacies, and mass vaccination sites. And every dose brings us closer to what we've missed. So join millions of Ontarians. Do your part and get your shot. Visit ontario.ca/bookvaccine. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
You want the truth? You can handle the truth. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To get the truth, call Richard now at 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
So, Robert, one of your, I guess, I don't know if he's one of your favorite directors, but you certainly are very interested in what's happening in the movie Midsommar. Ari Aster, talk to me about the symbology in Midsommar. First, maybe explain a little bit about what this horror film is all about.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very impressed with both his movies, Hereditary and Midsommar. Hereditary came out first. I saw Midsommar first, and I was so impressed with it. I went back and watched Hereditary. I'd never seen Hereditary, so I watched them backwards. But this is one of those movies where, you watch it and it just really stands out. I mean, it just is striking. This is a director who clearly knows what he is doing. He clearly knows what he is going for. And the reason why I like that movie so much is it reminds me of The Wizard of Oz, partially because it is The Wizard of Oz. But it's multi-layered. Anytime a movie is multi-layered, that always impresses me. And what I mean by multi-layered is it has different levels of undercurrent. Like The Wizard of Oz, for example, I'm not going to stay on this point, but like it has the political allegory and then has the Gnostic allegory. Midsommar is the same thing. I mean, you have so much going on. I mean, you have it borrowing from other movies. I mean, if you've ever seen The Wicker Man with Christopher Lee, it strikes you immediately that this was part of what he was drawing from. He invests the movie with the number 9 all over the place, and I can't get into it all, but it has to do with Norse mythology. The movie takes place in Sweden. And so there's lots of Norse mythology, and the number 9 is critical in Norse mythology. What makes that so interesting is the movie is very dark. It's very evil. I said, I may have been on your show, I can't remember. I said, it's one of those movies that reminds me of like The Exorcist and The Black Cat with Lugosi and Karloff, where it's like you almost feel like the devil is in the celluloid. And that's kind of what I felt when I was watching Midsommar. It's very evil. I mean, it's a very dark movie. Just like those other two, and you have this whole idea of it being a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, where you have this young woman going on this mystical journey, very dark, with these 3 companions who are all representative of the 3 companions of from The Wizard of Oz. I mean, you have the boyfriend. Christian, who is the Cowardly Lion. You have Josh, who is the scholar. He's heartless. He doesn't have a heart, so he'd be the Tin Man. And then, of course, you have the fool who lives only for pleasure, which would be Mark. And she has this very dark epiphany at the very end, where she's integrated into this death cult, essentially. And what makes it so interesting is just the solar symbolism. I mean, you have a lot of reference. There's a reference in it to a couple of the Kubrick movies, The Shining. If you watch the movie, pay attention to when Danny, this is Florence Pugh, this is the protagonist, when she's sleeping in the bunkhouse, the bed, or excuse me, the blanket that she's using is reminiscent, has the same pattern as the carpet from the Overlook Hotel. I thought that was very clever. And again, that's to convey a sense of isolation, that they're in the middle of nowhere. And what makes the movie so very, very complex is, and again, this is reviewed on multiple viewings. I mean, I think in my book it takes up like 75 pages, I believe, just Midsommar alone. Is the runes? Is you have the use of the elder and younger Futhark runes in the movie, and they have meaning. Believe you me, you cannot do an analysis of Midsommar without mentioning the runes, because they turn up, and when they turn up, they are intentional. And again, one of the things I thought that was very interesting, I skipped over this, was this use of the number 9. If you go back and watch Hereditary, which was his first movie, this is a movie about demonic possession, and it focuses on a specific demon named Paimon. And if you've seen Hereditary, of course, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What makes it so interesting is, and I wonder if Astor did this on purpose, is if you pull out your copy of Ars Goetia from the bookshelf, the Lesser Key of Solomon, and you open to
I've got that right handy right here, Robert.
Yeah,
I mean, your reading list is incredible. I mean,
yeah. Well, if you open,
breadth of your knowledge is unimaginable.
If you open the book to Paimon, you'll notice he is the 9th demon in Ars Goetia, and again, the number 9 pervades Midsommar. And if you watch Hereditary, you'll know that movie focuses on Paimon. So I couldn't help but think, oh, maybe he's trying to conjure this demon again by investing, by putting Paimon subconsciously into Midsommar. But it's a very dark movie.
Wait a second. You think that Ari Aster is actually, because you mentioned, with that film, as with a couple of other examples, that the devil is in the celluloid. Do you think Ari Aster is a Satanist? Is he trying to summon a demon?
I don't think he's a Satanist. I think he's just I think he's making very dark films. And I don't think he has I think he liked the world. I wouldn't go so far. I don't think Ari Aster is a Satanist no more than William Friedkin or William Peter Blatty were with The Exorcist. I think he's a very dark filmmaker, and he's using demonism in his films. But I wouldn't go so far as to call him a Satanist.
Do you think he believes in the power of these symbols?
I think he believes in the power of darkness, because he has 2 very profound movies about them, and both movies are incredibly dark. Like I call him in the book, I define him. I think he's this generation's, based on what I've seen so far, version of Roman Polanski. Just this very incredibly dark filmmaker. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about Polanski, the filmmaker, not his extracurriculars.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I mean, you just look at Polanski, whether it be Rosemary's Baby, I mean, or, The Ninth Gate, or certainly Repulsion. I mean, we're just dealing with some very, very dark themes and very dark cinema. And Astor is walking that same path.
Yeah, I find it difficult to watch those movies. I don't. I mean, I can understand the artistry involved and so forth, and the storytelling, but I can't allow that to seep into my house. I can't. I don't know I don't understand the purpose of film like that. It's so dark and so bleak, and I always feel I feel the same way about sort of these zombie apocalypse movies. I feel at the end just complete hopelessness.
Yeah, I know people to this day who can't sit through The Exorcist. I mean, so what you're saying is, resonates with me. I don't have a problem with them per se. Horror is I guess I'm probably a bit of a horror buff. It's probably one of my favorite genres. But no, they are very bleak. Those movies, they do have that dystopian ending, which a lot of people are very uncomfortable with. You get into sort of, I was on another show talking about this, where you get into, kind of what I've called like the satanic trio of these of movies. I define it as The Exorcist, The Omen, and Rosemary's Baby. They all came out in that 8-year time frame from about 68 to 76, and those three movies are impenetrable. You just have those as sort of the satanic trio, as it were. And excuse me, the reason why I believe that is the case is they have that dystopian ending that you're talking about. They're so bleak and so dark, where evil wins. Evil triumphs over good. You take a movie, for example, that came out in 68 also, called The Devil Rides Out, which was based on a novel by Dennis Wheatley. This came out the same year as Rosemary's Baby. And it stars Christopher Lee. He plays the good guy in that one. But that movie is never, ever I mean, it involves a cult of Satanists. The Makata character played by Charles Gray is a Crowley analog. But that movie is never, ever, ever mentioned in the same way as those other three. Yet it came out in 68. And it has the scene in it where the Crowley character, Makata, conjures Baphomet to go to Mendes. Yet that movie is never, ever put into the same category as those other three. And the reason is, if you watch The Devil Rides Out, good triumphs over evil at the end. Triumphs over evil at the end. Good clearly emerges victorious. Mokata and his cult of devil worshippers are thoroughly defeated. This clearly isn't the case in Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, and The Exorcist, where evil is exalted and evil triumphs over good. So yeah, I mean, they're very dystopian. Even in another movie that kind of reminds me of that is the one with Vincent Price. It's not satanic or anything. Is The Witchfinder General. That was released in the United States as The Conqueror Worm. I don't know why. But that movie has that dystopian ending where you watch it and you're like, oh God, is that really the ending of it? Where it's like insanity. It's a good movie. Probably one of Price's best performances. I absolutely love the movie, but again, has that very dystopian ending, which is very disturbing. And it can be. It's people walk out of the theater and it's like, God, did I just, really spend, 2 hours of my life watching something so bleak?
I want to leave a film or a theater feeling uplifted. However. Sure. To each his own. Robert, stay with us. We'll head on into hour 2, and we will talk about things like occult casting and sort of mnemonic devices that are used with the occult symbology, and also, of course, we will get around to predictive programming. Sure. Robert W. Sullivan IV. The book is Cinema Symbolism 3: The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. Back with more in a minute. Don't go away.
Exploring theories, uncovering facts, and offering a different view of the universe. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett on Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Zoomer Radio Toronto, CFZM FM and CFZN AM, owned and operated by NZ Media Incorporated.
Live from Toronto, Canada, Earth. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett on Zoomer Radio.
Thanks for inviting me into your home, your long-haul truck, RV, camper, taxi, your parents' well-appointed basement with a simulated wood paneling, electric fireplace, and the painting of dogs playing poker, your loft, that greasy spoon just off the interstate, and your cabin in the woods. Robert W. Sullivan IV stays with us as we continue to delve into esoteric and occult symbolism in cinema. Again, Robert is an historian, philosopher, antiquarian, jurist, lay theologian, writer, mystic, radio TV personality, best-selling author, CEO, and lawyer, the author of 5 books, including The Royal Arch of Enoch, Cinema Symbolism 1, Cinema Symbolism 2, A Pact with the Devil, which is a work of fiction, and his latest is Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. All right, so let's talk about life imitating art and 9/11, which kind of this motif in a number of films for maybe like a 5-year period, 6-year period leading up to 9/11. This 9/11 motif, we see it is running throughout these movies. What's going on there? Let's talk about. There's a comedy I remember with Dan Aykroyd, and I think it was Bill Murray, and Bob Hope had a cameo in it. It was called Spies Like Us. So there's a 9/11 motif there.
Well, right. What I said in the book was, well, I mean, there's 2 things that are a little separate. There's the symbolism in film leading up to it, which is, you know, the 9/11 little, you know, clues in these Gnostic films right up before the event. What I put in the book was, of course, with 9/11, if you're going to presume, and again, I underline the word presume, that this was a government conspiracy or this was an inside job, I guess is the better word to use. One of the things that, of course, is always pointed out was that the buildings were brought down in a controlled demolition. And this clearly seems to be the case with Building 7. You know, and the idea was that planes hit the 2 towers, the Twin Towers, and that, you know, according to the Newtonian physics, the tops should have slid off to the side. They should have followed the path of least resistance. Instead, they collapse into their own footprint, which kind of defies, you know, Newtonian, you know, gravitational theory. So the hypothesis then is that these buildings were pulled in a controlled demolition. So if we're going to go down that rabbit hole, then it begs the next question. Well, if they're going to be pulled in a controlled demolition, how these buildings had to get wired for, you know, these buildings had to be, you know, wired with thermite cutting charges to cut the load bearing members and support columns to bring these buildings come crashing down. So how was this done? I mean, let's just continue to hypothesize here. Well, of course, if this is going to be, if we're going to go down this rabbit hole, like I said, then obviously someone had to plant these explosives and you know, to carry this out. When I was looking into this, believe it or not, and I was stunned when I found this out, was that there was a renovation project to the building's elevators. This was the Twin Towers that was started in January of 2001 and lasted all the way up through August of 2001. And you would think to yourself that if you're going to hire someone to repair elevators or do elevator renovation or, you know, escalator renovation or whatever, the whole buildings, you would call Otis Elevator. I mean, they're the world's biggest one. They're the, you know, everyone knows you can't get on an escalator or elevator with seeing Otis on it. But this wasn't the case. The company it was called the Ace Elevator Company, which has subsequently vanished. They don't exist. And when I saw that name, the first thing that just popped into my head was, I thought, well, if this was an inside job, whoever put this thing together obviously must have been a fan of the movie Spies Like Us, because if you ever saw that movie, the name of the company that carries out the government wet works and black operations was called the Ace Tomato Company. Very similar. And what makes it even stranger was to access Ace Tomato Company, you had to go down a giant elevator, if I remember correctly. But I always thought that was strange. I thought, well, that's interesting. I guess whoever if we're presuming, and again I use the word presume, that this was an inside job, clearly they must have taken inspiration or been inspired or copied the name of this company, Ace Elevator Company, and used it from Spies Like Us, this 1985 film, to generate the Ace or the Ace Elevator Company. The parallels are too striking.
So just their own little inside joke, I guess.
I guess so.
All right. So let's talk about 9/11 imaging in films.
Sure.
Vanilla Sky, The Matrix, Fight Club. Well, let's start with Vanilla Sky.
Right. So, I mean, you're absolutely correct. You have this whole slate of Gnostic films. I mean, it goes, back even further. But you have, we'll just stick with the ones you're talking about. You had the slate of Gnostic films that came out right around 9/11 or before it. Vanilla Sky was filmed before 9/11, where the end of the movie is just very eerie to the whole 9/11 incident, where the film was made before 9/11. The movie was released in December of 2001. And if you've seen Vanilla Sky, you'll know at the very end, I guess I'm spoiling the movie here a little bit, where the Tom Cruise character goes up on this incredibly high skyscraper, actually overlooking the Twin Towers. You can see them in the background. For various, I won't get into the whole movie, it would be too long and dragged out, but he has to jump off the building to awaken to consciousness. And you see him leap off and plummet down this building. And of course, when you're watching this, you think immediately of the people having to leap off. It's very poignant. It's very sad, leaping off the World Trade Centers, plunging to their deaths, as it were. When that movie came out, I believe Cameron Crowe was the director. There was a considerable effort put upon him to remove that scene or to change it around because of 9/11, which had just happened. But he refused. He left it in, and I'm glad he did, because it's very poignant and it does resonate. So, you have Vanilla Sky, which is one. You have The Matrix, of course, which is, Neo's passport expires on September 11th, 2001. You have the exact date. And you have the entire theme of awakening to consciousness. Again, maybe this whole thing with the Platonic year changeover from Pisces to Aquarius, just one hypothetical. Fight Club, you have the demolition of the two buildings at the end. I believe Fight Club came out in 98, maybe it was 99, I can't recall. And then you also have the scene in it where the space monkeys destroy the piece of corporate art, which is very reminiscent to the Sphere, which used to sit in the plaza of the World Trade Center. So that was interesting. And then you have the one kind of thing that I always found, it was like a ley line almost, only it works through time, not on the Earth, you have this sequencing where you have, it was like, and I'd have to go look, it's in the books, where 9/11, of course, happened on September 11th, and Fight Club, I think, was 1999, which 2 years before. And Fight Club, I think, was released on like September 21st, right around 9/11. And then you go back a few years later where you have the one Simpson episode where Homer goes to New York City. And, of course, Bart waves the money in front of the program with 9/11 on it. The name of the episode, I believe, is called Homer Simpson versus New York City. That was released. That aired on like September 10th. 1996. So you have this kind of like sequential timeline pointing right towards 9/11. It's weird.
Oh, it's beyond weird. I mean,
yeah. I mean, and then you have, you could go back in time even with this, where you have movies like Escape from New York, where the plane crashes into Air Force One, crashes into Lower Manhattan. You have the Donnie Darko movie, which was released a month after 9/11, again, filmed before 9/11, which involved a plane crash. And again, I guess I'm spoiling it a little here, where the jet engine comes crashing down through Donnie's bedroom through an American flag. And actually, Richard Kelly, who directed the movie, actually did an interview, and he blamed that scene on the movie being a bit of a commercial failure. He thought people stayed away from it because it was too reminiscent to 9/11. So yeah, I mean, in Hollywood, in these movies, you do have this prophesizing, as it were, of 9/11, and it's there, Richard. I mean, it's clearly there.
It's on rap albums. It's on it's in the Simpson episode. It's in So what is behind this? Let's assume that the producers, the writers on The Simpsons don't have a pipeline into, Al Qaeda or the deep state or whoever is responsible for that heinous crime.
Sure.
What else could explain predictive programming? Because there, we can talk about some other examples besides 9/11, like the Dark Knight, the Batman movie, where we see on a map Sandy Hook, of course, where that horrible school shooting was, that massacre. What's happening here?
Yeah, there's better ones than that. There's the Kobe Bryant one from the Legends of Chamberlain Heights, where Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter accident. And then there was the better one, even the best one, I guess, is the 3 Mile Island, which was the China Syndrome, which was about a nuclear reactor melting down. I think it came out a week beforehand. So how is this accounted for? One way, and again, this is me hypothesizing here, is that you look at what Carl Jung said with regarding the collective unconscious and the archetypes, and could this be, when you're dealing with the application and the making of cinema and it being a creative effort using archetypes, could if the collective unconscious is inherited, which is what Jung said, and it's collective, so we all share it, is this somehow, when it's being applied to art, can it somehow be a predictive mechanism? And when you're talking this, there was a Christian mystic who talked about this. His name was Emanuel Swedenborg, and he is a rumored Jacobite Freemason. He's a very interesting character, and he didn't have the advent of the use of modern psychology, but they talk about things like images coming from the world's soul and meditation on these images coming from the world's soul, the unus mundi. This is what guys like Giordano Bruno also talked about, and what Swedenborg said was, if you meditate on these things and you concentrate on them, you can become prophetic. Swedenborg actually predicted the day of his own death accurately. And you look at it and you think to yourself, well, if movies are applying the archetypes, is this some sort of predictive? Is the movie becoming a predictive piece of art, as it were? Because it's incorporating the archetype, it's incorporating these images coming from the world's soul, what people like Bruno and Swedenborg were talking about. What's interesting is, if you break this down even further, you say to yourself, well, where can I find archetypal imagery? Where's one of the best examples where I could find archetypal imagery? And the answer is the tarot. The tarot cards. This is where you find your archetypes: the destroyer, the tower, the sun, the moon, the lovers, the fool. This is your kind of index of the archetypes. Well, what are tarot cards used for? Well, they can be used for prophecy, for predicting the future, to see into one's future, as it were. So this ties into this whole use of the archetypes, and this is what, again, people like Bruno and especially Swedenborg talked about, was if you meditate on these things, and you tune into them, you can actually use them somehow, some way, to prophesize the future. This could be one explanation as to how these movies somehow seem to be predicting the future. It's one explanation. I'm not saying it's the only one. I'm a lawyer, so I have to present as many as I possibly can. You could certainly craft the argument that Hollywood producers are working with the deep state, and the deep state is crafting all these global catastrophes, and they're giving it to Hollywood. That's one possibility. Maybe Hollywood, elites, filmmakers are conjuring demons or have crystal balls themselves. Possible. But certainly what I just said is one possible way of trying to explain this.
All right. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Because
that's a fascinating one too.
Well, let's start with the more recent one, which is when he made what was called this inappropriate phone call to the president of Ukraine, and it sounded like, or the case was being made that it was this quid pro quo call, which it wasn't, but that's another story. But that ultimately led to his impeachment. So we see this actually kind of play out in a strange way in the movie Joker.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's all kind of crazy stuff going on with Donald Trump. You have the Joker movie, which was right before the Ukrainian impeachment, where if you watch Joker, you have the Thomas Wayne character, which is clearly, unmistakably, a Donald Trump analog. I mean, no question about that. I mean, he's running for mayor. He's the savior of Gotham. I mean, it's the whole campaign slogan for Thomas Wayne is essentially "Make Gotham Great Again." And right there in that movie, there's a scene where Fleck, this is Joaquin Phoenix, is looking at the newspaper where the papers are beginning to pick up on the exploits of the Joker character. Where he shoots the guys down in the subway. And believe it or not, there's actually a little tagline on the newspaper that says "Trouble with the Ukraine," and I always thought that was fascinating. You have to actually pause it. It's in the movie. It's hard to see, but if you look at the newspaper, it says "Problems with the Ukraine" or "Problems in Ukraine," and I thought, oh God, isn't that strange? I mean, here you have this Thomas Wayne, Donald Trump figure right in there, and you have a clear reference to Ukraine in the movie. And I just found that is so interesting. I just found that, and it's right beforehand. That's what makes it so astounding. I mean, I think Joker, off the top of my head, came out in October of 2019. This was like a month or so right before the impeachment thing. And I just found that so fascinating. They were just so close to it.
Oh, it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah.
What about the Lego movie with Donald Trump?
Well, that's another one. That came out, I believe, in 13 or 14. Maybe it was 12. I'd have to go back and look. And you clearly have, again, the president business character who becomes president. He starts off as a businessman, and he becomes president business, is, again, another Donald Trump analog, stand-in, personification, call it what you will, where the president business character wants to just build walls around the different Lego universes, sequester them off with walls, and he refers to his detractors as snowflakes. You can't make this stuff up. And then you have right around that same time the Serta mattress ad, where Donald Trump hires the Serta mattress sheep, the sleep sheep, to guard the rooms to his hotels, and the numbers on the sheep are 11 and 9, which was November 9th, which was the date that he became president. Again, you just can't make this stuff up, and it's just astounding when you look at it.
Well, even if we go back 130 years to the late 19th century, you had Ingersoll Lockwood, this American author and lawyer. Maybe some similarities between you and Ingersoll Lockwood there, Robert. But he was writing these Baron Trump novels, right? It was the travels and adventures of little Baron Trump and his wonderful dog Bolger, and Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey.
And he goes to Russia to meet Don.
Right.
Yeah. The little Baron Trump starts his adventure by going to Russia to meet Don. Fascinating. And what's even more stranger about the whole thing is, and this is in the book, is if you look at the illustration of little Baron Trump, it looks just like the real one. It looks like the real Baron Trump at that same age. That's what's really peculiar about it. There's an illustration of what little Baron Trump looks like, and if you look at him and you pull up a picture, and it's in the book of what Baron Trump looked like at that age, they look identical.
And didn't Don, the character Don, didn't he have nicknames for people he didn't like the real Donald Trump, Sleepy Joe Biden and lying Ted Cruz and whatever he called Hillary. He had the character in the book also had nicknames for his enemies.
And then he wrote, Ingersoll Rand also wrote a book, another one where a presidential candidate out of nowhere came out of New York and was causing riots in the streets. It's too strange.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to open up the phone lines right now and take questions and comments. And also, if you're in the YouTube live chat, we'll take your questions as well. And Ryan will, my live stream producer, will feed those to me. So 416-360-0740 in the Greater Toronto area, 416-360-0740. And toll free from just about anywhere, 1-866-740-4740, 740 4740. That's the GTA. And again, the Greater Toronto Area, 416 360 0740. Back with more of my conversation with Robert W. Sullivan IV when the Conspiracy Show continues.
Corporations, governments, and sometimes entire civilizations. What goes up must come down, and it lands on The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. Tuesday nights on
Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon-60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Syrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Syrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
Assets, a public company traded on the CSE under BIGG.
I'm Marilyn Weston, and I give it to you straight from a woman's perspective here on Zoomer Radio every Saturday morning at 8. This Saturday, my team will share their knowledge and passions and happy stories so you can learn what works best for you and make informed decisions and take action with no regrets. So plan to tune in and join me, Marilyn Weston, and my team and get it straight from a woman's perspective this Saturday morning at 8 exclusively here on Zoomer Radio.
The world is being pulled over your eyes. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To reach Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
And we are back with Robert W. Sullivan IV, and Cinema Symbolism 3 is his latest. How do we get a copy, Robert?
Sure. It's on all the major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's on the Canadian Amazon site. You can go to my website if you like. There's links there, robertwsullivaniv.com. Or you can just go to Amazon and type the title in. I'm sure it'll come up. And it's all my books are, of course, in the print and ebook edition, the Kindle, the Nook. So you can get whatever you want. And like I said, they're all on all the major online retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. And that goes for all the international Amazon sites as well. So you can get into Canada, no problem.
All right. So what is occult casting all about?
Right. This is something that is just a really interesting study, in my opinion. And this is where that's a term that I used. I came up with it myself because I could think of nothing else to call it. Although I think now you could possibly put it under the purview of art of memory, which I can get into. But occult casting is where a filmmaker hires or retains and places in their film an actor or an actress for the sole purpose of transferring that actor's or actress's past performance or the themes of that movie into their new movie, into the new project. So, for example, a great example of this would be like Max von Sydow in the Star Wars The Force Awakens movie, where he just appears at the very beginning of it. they could have put anybody there. I mean, they could have put any elderly Hollywood actor there, but they choose Von Sydow, and they did that on purpose because his presence is designed to conjure two movies that he was in earlier. The first is The Exorcist, where, of course, he appears at in the desert at the very beginning also, and he confronts the demon, the statue of the demon Pazuzu. And he does the same thing in Star Wars, where he's in the desert and he confronts Kylo Ren, the black-suited Kylo Ren. So what that is doing to your subconscious is it is transferring this imagery of The Exorcist subconsciously into your mind, and it's investing the First Order and Kylo with sort of the demonism, the diabolic nature of The Exorcist of Pazuzu. And then the second movie, it's the same sort of thing, where it's Dune, where again Von Sydow appears on the desert planet and deals with the Harkonnens, which are also savage. These, the vile monster Baron Harkonnen. So again, by putting Von Sydow in that movie, in the Star Wars movie, what that is doing is subconsciously conjuring, drawing forth his two earlier performances in The Exorcist and Dune, and it's transferring sort of the raw savagery and the evilness of The Exorcist and Dune, the Harkonnens and Pazuzu, and putting them in the First Order. That's the way this stuff works. Von Sydow is an example of it. I have to think of some others, but there are others. I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Do you think that when the casting agent calls Max von Sydow, well, he's no longer with us, but would he be telling him the only reason you're being cast in this movie is no? He's not aware of it.
No, I think he just says, hey, let's hire. There are other examples of this. Maybe the actor is aware of it. It's possible. There are other examples of this. Like I said, I'm just drawing a blank right now off the top of my head. They're in the book, but I have documented other examples of this.
Patrick Swayze. How about Patrick Swayze in Donnie Darko?
Yeah, that's a great one. Donnie Darko and Catherine Ross in Donnie Darko. That is clearly designed. You have the whole idea of Donnie Darko being about disillusioned youth. And the casting of Swayze, the casting of Swayze is twofold. One is that movie, Donnie Darko, takes place in 1988 and is filled with 80s cheese. So the casting of Swayze is twofold. One, it's designed to resurrect his 80s movies that he made, like Roadhouse, but specifically it's designed to resurrect Dirty Dancing, which is again a movie that has an undercurrent about disenfranchised youth, youth being upset with the status quo, the underlings, the staff at the hotel being kind of suppressed by the adults in the hotel. It's a transitional movie from the 50s to the 60s, and Swayze's appearance is to do the same thing, because if you watch Donnie Darko, it's the same thing. It's about disillusioned youth, and that's what Dirty Dancing is about, disillusioned youth. Catherine Ross, same type of scenario. Her presence as a psychiatrist is designed to conjure The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman, where she played its girlfriend. Same theme. A movie about disillusioned youth, the 1960s. So those two actors in Donnie Darko are designed to conjure their early performances and transfer this whole sentiment of disillusioned youth, unhappiness with the status quo, and transfer it into Donnie Darko, which is again, Donnie Darko, the character is struggling with adults, and is again one of these disillusioned youth type characters, a Holden Caulfield, as it were.
Right. All right. Let's go to the YouTube live chat. And Mike L asks, Robert, do you have any examples of this occult or esoteric symbology in the video game industry?
I'd have to, it's not off the top of my head. I'd have to go and look at it. I know for a fact that I know the Assassin's Creed the Assassin's Creed video game was using some stuff from the world of conspiracy with, I had them. I have a PS3 here, and I used to, I don't really play too much anymore, but I did the Assassin, and they had the whole thing with like the Knights Templar and conspiracy stuff like that, and they had some hidden imagery, I think, in some of the video games. It's probably there. I've never really paid much attention to it, but if you told me video games were using occult themes and symbols, wouldn't surprise me.
All right. Solar Warden asks, Robert, have you seen the Lone Gunman episode about 9/11 and its glaring, literal same plan scenario with planes in the towers airing on TV in March of 2001? And your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, that's another one. The Lone Gunman is another one of another one of these predictive 9/11 movie or TV shows. That was a television show, of course. We're right, where the airliner actually gets hijacked by the government and was being flown into the World Trade Center. Yes, I'm familiar with that episode, and that's another great example of all this, pre 9/11 imagery and media.
Kim.net asks, Robert, can you discuss the possibility of retrocausality and the idea of the future possibly affecting the past? Basically, reverse prophecy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with that one. That's beyond my skill set, as it were.
All right. I wanted to ask you about Stanley Kubrick because, I mean, I think you would agree he's like the master of creating all of these multiple levels of and layers in his films. And people have suggested that The Shining was his way of the subtext in the film is basically his admission that he was the one that shot the lunar landing, the Apollo 11 lunar landing on a soundstage. It was a hoax, and this is him with these little hidden esoteric symbols in The Shining, revealing that in fact this was, his admission, the lunar landing. He filmed it. It was a hoax. Have you heard that?
Yes, The Shining. The Shining is a great movie and is overloaded with all sorts of imagery. What Kubrick does in that movie is he repeats numbers and themes all over the place. That movie is nothing but repeating doubles, and he is doing that to convey the sense of reincarnation, that the Overlook is just a never-ending Ouroboros biting its tail. The thing with NASA is interesting because there is some truth to this. It wasn't necessarily that it was a hoax. You could craft the argument that they actually went to the moon, but they couldn't film there. And that Kubrick just filmed the guys hopping around in like a soundstage. I believe it or not, this is actually seen in a James Bond movie. I believe it's Diamonds Are Forever, where Bond actually winds up in a Area 51 like base out in Nevada, and he goes down into like a basement or something, and there's a Stanley Kubrick analog down there filming the guys hopping around on the moon. But of course, in The Shining, it's the scene we all know about where little Danny is playing with the toys, stands up wearing the Apollo 11 sweater. Of course, this is the rocket launch, then goes to room 237. The symbolism being that back in the late 80s, the moon was 237,000 miles from the Earth. So this was Kubrick's way of saying, with Danny, symbolically wearing the Apollo 11 sweater, going to the moon, and going into room 237, and that this was Kubrick's way of saying to the world, I filmed the guys hopping around on the moon. This isn't as far-fetched as it sounds, and for a couple of reasons. One is there's rumors out there that the government was very impressed with Kubrick's filming of 2001 and Strangelove and the way he filmed those, and that when they saw those movies, just thought, hey, this is the guy. I mean, this is the guy we got to use to film the fake moon landing, these guys hopping around on a sound studio. Now, again, you could make the argument they actually went to the moon, but they just couldn't film there, and Kubrick filmed the footage. The smoking gun in all this is the movie that no one talks about with Kubrick, and it's Barry Lyndon. This was the movie he made before The Shining, and no one seems to be aware of this. I talk about it in the book. This is your smoking gun, because Kubrick used NASA technology to film the movie. Kubrick went to his old buddies at NASA and got special lenses to film Barry Lyndon. And the reason why is because Barry Lyndon is a movie about the Napoleonic Wars, takes place in the Napoleonic era. And Kubrick wanted to film the movie and wanted to film scenes in the movie using exclusively candle lighting. Well, this can't be done if you're familiar with cinema. You could have characters sitting in a dark room with a candle going, but of course you have to have an exterior light shining on them. It'll be too dark. It will never show up. There's no way to film the camera. Characters sitting in a room illuminated by candles only. It's too dark. It's too glaring. Won't work. NASA developed a lens that allowed you to do this. I forget the name of it. but it was a high focal lens. And when Kubrick requested a couple of these from NASA, and of course, being pals with them, they gave them to him. And he used his cinematographer, went to work on these lenses, and he actually crafted them. So when you're watching Barry Lyndon, which a Kubrick movie, he filmed that using NASA technology. And of course, why did he have such access to NASA? And of course, the answer is obvious. He filmed the moon landing for them.
Fantastic. All right. Good stuff, Robert. Stay put. We'll take another time out, come back, get to some more calls. 416-360-0740 in the GTA, toll free from just about anywhere. 866-740-4740.
This is no place for the naive or the faint-hearted. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
Thinking about long-term care needs of a loved one?
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
Vaccines are conveniently available in hospitals, doctors' offices, pharmacies, and mass vaccination sites. And every dose brings us closer to what we've missed. So join millions of Ontarians. Do your part and get your shot. Visit ontario.ca/lookvaccine. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Magic trick number 7. The famous disappearing window crack trick. It's not that big a trick, really. We just got rid of it. It was always the first part of a casement window to fail. So now Magic uses a patented parallax system, and every window is guaranteed for 40 years. You know, some tricks are really obvious once you look at them closely. Find out more at magicwindow.ca. It's not really magic. It's just better, smarter thinking.
Where there's smoke, there's The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
All right, Robert, what is mesmerism, and how did Edgar Allan Poe use it?
Yeah, mesmerism is a early form of hypnotism. This fascinated Edgar Allan Poe. He uses it in several of his short stories. And what's interesting with Poe is he kind of dumps on the occult a little bit. Although you find esoteric themes in some of his works, you find mesmerism. The cast of Amontillado is the anti-Masonic movement. The character of Fortunato, or Fortuna, or whatever his name is what's his name? The guy I just said, William Morgan, who gets bricked up by the Masons' bricks in the wall, disappears forever. So the Castle of Amontillado is a tale about is a reflection of the anti-Masonic movement of the 1820s. The guy who was interacting with Poe, and this gets left out, was a guy by the name of Ethan Allen Hitchcock at West Point. He was a teacher at West Point, and Poe was at West Point and actually was a student of his. Ethan Allen Hitchcock is the grandson, of course, of the Freemason Ethan Allen, the Revolutionary War hero. And Ethan Allen Hitchcock was a Rosicrucian. He identified as himself as a Rosicrucian. And during the American Civil War, he was the chief advisor to Abraham Lincoln. So you had a Rosicrucian in the White House advising Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. And Poe, you'll find occult themes in Poe. Like I said, the Castle of Amontillado is anti-Masonry, with Fortunato character being William Morgan being bricked up, by the Masons' trowel. at the end who disappears forever. Mesmerism fascinated Poe. You'll find it in a couple of his stories. The names are escaping me right now. It's late in the it's a little beyond my bedtime right now. So
No worries.
please forgive me if I can't recall the names of certain things. But no, Poe's an interesting character. And again, the reason I bring that up, and I brought it up earlier, is I want people to understand that Hollywood's use of occult themes, symbols, esoteric undercurrents is nothing new. You will find this in the works of the 19th century writers in America. You'll find this in the works of Richard Wagner, Mozart, William Shakespeare, or Sir Francis Bacon, if you will. Yeah, I mean, this is nothing new to Hollywood.
You've got a note here that I forgot to ask you about earlier, because you mentioned Thomas Aquinas and Albertus Magnus. You say they meddled with AI, as in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that's right. The whole idea of artificial intelligence, and the animation of human beings, creation of human beings, it comes from this is millennia old. This comes from Kabbalah, number one, with the idea of golem making. This is where you use divine names and divine sigils and Hebrew letters to create life. This is, of course, Frankenstein's monster, Smurfette, Frosty the Snowman. This all comes out of the world of Jewish mysticism, and then, of course, the Hermetica in the Latin Asclepius. You have the whole idea of what are called Hermetic statues, and this they talk about that man can make statues and animate them, and bring these statues to life, and they can do whatever they want them to do. And again, this runs parallel with the Kabbalist golem, Frankenstein's monster, Frosty the Snowman, Smurfette, what have you. And there were these two Christian saints. I mean, this is part of history, allegedly anyway. A Saint Albertus Magnus apparently used a magic to animate a talking head of brass that was considered a hermetic statue. This talking head of brass was animated through some sort of magic of some kind. And the story goes that Thomas Aquinas, of course, the saint, smashed it, destroyed the statue because it kept interrupting his studies, and he got sick and tired of it, and smashed this talking head of brass, this AI, this robot, as it were, because it kept bothering him. So again, the whole idea of AI is nothing new to Hollywood. This goes back 2 millennia at least.
Fascinating. All right, I want to work in some more questions here from the YouTube live chat. Show Me the Truth 74 asks, there are tales of sacrifices for power in Hollywood. Robert, do you have any personal knowledge of a ritual sacrifice?
No, I do not have any personal knowledge of a sacrifice. I've never attended a human sacrifice, and I have no personal knowledge of a sacrifice.
All right, I thought you might answer that way.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen Krashevsky asks, do you have any thoughts on think tanks and lobbyist groups consulting with Hollywood to push certain agendas, and almost as many that work with the federal government?
It's certainly possible. I have no personal knowledge of it, but that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I know, for example, the one Transformer movie used the movie, I can't remember, there's been so damn many of these things. The one Transformer movie where they're fighting on the pyramid at the end. I think it's the sequel, Rise of the Fallen, maybe. And the Navy uses the railgun to blast one of the Transformers. And this is true. The Navy had developed the railgun and actually wanted the Transformer movie to relay it to the world. Because after the movie came out, the United States Navy said, yeah, that's real. We have a railgun, and we use this movie to announce it to the world. So, yeah, and like I said, the FBI reviewed the X-Files scripts for accuracy. And again, to repeat, Yankee Doodle Dandy, war propaganda, Pentagon, or the War Department. And same thing with the first couple Universal Sherlock Holmes movies with Rathbone and Karloff, Rathbone and Nigel Bruce.
All right, we'll take one final timeout, come back, get to some more questions from the YouTube live chat. More of my conversation with Robert W. Sullivan IV, Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled, right here on The Conspiracy Show.
Loose lips sink ships, and sometimes corporations or toll free at 1-866-740-4740. Toronto's favorite music festival, the Peaches Jazz Festival, is back. Drive-in style this summer at the Guildford Go Station.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of Bioastin. That's 75 capsules. Now, Bioastin, or astaxanthin, is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
From Depend, featuring fast-absorbing material and ultra-soft fabric that moves with you. Sign up for your free trial of Depend products like FitFlex, Silhouette, or Real Fit, and coupons at www.depend.ca. Your trial kit will be delivered discreetly directly to your door. Depend. The only thing stronger than us is you.
Big Brother is listening, and so are you, to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
And a few minutes remain with Robert W. Sullivan IV. How do we get a copy of Cinema Symbolism 3?
Sure. You can go to Amazon. All the online sites have it. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the ones that sell books, of course. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. You can go to my website. There's links there to buy it. My website is my name. My name is robertwsullivan.iv.com for the 4th. There are links there to purchase it. Again, if you just go to Amazon and type the name in, it'll be there. It'll be on the Amazon Canada site, England, Germany, France, United States. All my books are there. I have an author central page. So if you go to my Google, just type in my name, that'll come up. And again, all my books, Cinema Symbolism, 1, 2, 3, Royal Arch and Pact, they're all in print and ebook form. So whatever you want to get, it's up to you. But they're all available, all print, all ebook. Knock yourself out.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. John is checking in from Toronto. Good morning, John.
Hi, hope I can finish my spiel before I get hit and run off the road here. I meant to say, sorry. Why don't you say, no disrespect, guest of the year there, Mr.
Sullivan.
Sullivan III. Yeah. Talk is cheap, mommy to say, and I'd appreciate having some proof and evidence with respect to all these movie clips that you speak of. For instance, if you have a website, you can provide it to us right now so we can check out clips that may have put together which coincide with your allegations, which I don't really doubt at all. But
Well, there's no allegations here. He's simply talking about a well-known practice by directors and writers to insert symbolism into film. I mean, that's not an allegation. That's just.
I mean, you can watch The Shining. If you read my book, you can watch The Shining and count the repetition. I mean, I've done it myself. You read the book, watch the movie, you'll see it all.
All right. Let's say hi to. Jennifer's in the YouTube live chat. She wants to know about the stories about Nicole Kidman's father. This is kind of drifting off into an area I don't know that you're.
No, I saw that. I saw that on the chat.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I do. I analyze in Cinema Symbolism 2. I analyze Eyes Wide Shut, and I do analyze in Royal Arch the Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. That's as close as I can get to the number 9 and to Nicole Kidman.
Right. Her father was allegedly involved in this child sacrifice cult, which I don't know anything about that really, other than that was the rumor that was out there. Picasso wants you to touch on the movie Tenet, and is it the Sator Square or Sator Square?
Yeah, I've never seen the movie. I have not seen the movie Tenet, and I do not comment on movies that I have not seen.
All right. Let's see. Now, someone had an interesting question in the YouTube live chat as well. It's not posted up on the Skype chat here, but it had to do with Admiralty law. And let's see, which movie was it? It was one of the Star Trek movies, I think. Oh, here it is. Sigma 6. Sigma 6 asks, do you see a legal analogy in the movie The Matrix, i.e. Admiralty law? Remember in the movie, every time they wanted to exit the Matrix, they had to use a landline. I'm not sure what the connection is between Admiralty law. Anyway, any thoughts on that, Robert?
No, not really. I don't have anything on that one.
All right. That's that's an obscure reference. Admiralty law and the Matrix. All right. Fairy tales as solar allegories. What does that mean?
Well, right. Again, this is again, we're dealing with the archetypes, and again, what's the most powerful ones? Well, they all come from the heavens, the sun, the moon, and again, you look at, this is something I took on in Cinema Symbolism 2 initially, and then I finished it up in Cinema Symbolism 3 with Beauty and the Beast. But again, these fairy tales, they're all the same thing, whether it be it's a solar allegory. You get into, the heroine is the dawn, the sun in the morning, she falls into the winter months, and then is awakened at the vernal equinox by the blonde-haired, blue-eyed prince. You look at Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood is the sun cloaked in the red cloak, the leaves of autumn, falls into winter, gets swallowed by the wolf, liberated at the vernal equinox, by the huntsman, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed prince. Snow White, same story. Cinderella, trapped by the 3 winter months, the stepsisters, liberated at the vernal equinox by the Prince Charming. It's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over again. Beauty and the Beast, the woman is trapped in the wintry castle, only to be liberated by the beast himself when he turns into the Hampton Prince at the vernal equinox. The sun resurrected, the sun born again. Same thing, same motif over and over again. And what's funny is, if you watch the one movie that I took on in Cinema Symbolism 3, which was Beauty and the Beast. This was the Disney live action one with Emma Watson. In the Beauty and the Beast song, which is the same song from the 1991 version, they actually added the lyric. They actually knew this. They actually figured this out finally. And they actually added the lyric, something to the effect of like winter turns to spring, something like that. And it's the same thing. It's just the emergence of the sun from the winter months into the spring months. And you'll find this again pervading fairy tales. This is something I talk about in both the books, and something that's, again, you're dealing with archetypal imagery, sun, the moon, winter, summer months, things like that.
Right. All right. So we've been talking about different types of symbology, Gnostic symbology, Enochian symbology, Hermeticism, alchemical, but there's also, from time to time, we'll see Christian symbology. And the example that you give in the book is actually like something I didn't expect at all. And it has to do with all those Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, for a few dollars more. There's Christian symbology there.
Sure. Well, Sergio Leone was a Roman Catholic, so it only serves that there would be Christian imagery in his films. Martin Scorsese does it again, uses borrows heavily from Leone for Gangs of New York, uses the same sort of theme, same sort of imagery. But I mean, you have the Blondie character. This is the Clint Eastwood character, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christ archetype. You have him in the one. What is it, Fistful of Dollars, where he, gets killed, gets resurrected, goes into the subterranean tomb, gets resurrected, and emerges only to defeat, the devil, the Rojas family. Same sort of theme carried forward in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where you have Blondie as the Christ figure, battling the devil, which is the bad. This is Levon Cleef. And of course, they're competing for the soul of humankind, which is the Ugly, which is Eli Wallach. And the reason that he is called the Ugly This is humankind in the state after the fall of Eden. So the whole movie is a religious allegory. It's God versus the devil, competing for the souls of humanity, which is represented by the ugly. And again, this same theme, Martin Scorsese uses this exact same imagery, these exact same themes in his Gangs of New York movie, where the Daniel Day-Lewis character is obviously the devil, the Amsterdam character is obviously the Christ figure, battling for the soul of New York, as it were. It's very interesting, and yeah, the Christ figure turns up from time to time. I mean, JC, the initials, John Coffey from the Green Mile, who resurrects the dead mouse and heals the sick and dies for the sins of the South. John Carpenter, JC, Christ was a carpenter. From the day the earth stood still, comes down from the heavens to warn mankind about their error of their ways. James Cole, JC, Jesus Christ, comes back in time to save humankind from a deadly virus. Of course, no one believes him. Good, yeah. So, yeah, Jesus Christ turns up from time to time in cinema. No question about it.
Is there a movie that you find is just almost inexhaustible in the number of layers, in the number of symbols, and so forth?
The one that I keep coming back to is, and the one that I literally, Richard, that I watch it every time. Every time I watch it, I seem to pick up something new, is Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan. That's the one that to me is almost never ending. There is so much going on in that movie. You could probably write a book about it itself. In fact, when I did Black Swan, I actually split it in half. I took it on in Cinema Symbolism 1. I took it on in Cinema Symbolism 2. I find myself constantly coming back to it. I talk about it in Cinema Symbolism 3 because literally every time I seem to watch it, I seem to see something new in it. And it's just one of those like masterpieces that, you know, just as like a never-ending study. You could probably write a book about it by itself.
Maybe that's your next. Maybe that is your next book, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going back through the other four and just making some cleanups, tweaks to it. I might throw in a little more information. I know when I'm doing Cinema Symbolism Part 1, I want to throw in some more information from The Wizard of Oz. So that's kind of my next project right now, is I want to tweak. But the reason for this was with the Royal Arch book. I want to do another book on Masonry, but it doesn't work. I couldn't get it to work, so I'm going back to Royal Arch. I'm going to add in some of the stuff I subtracted out. And I figure, well, while I'm doing that, let me make some edits to Cinema Symbolism 1 and 2 and Pack with the Devil. I want to clean up a couple things. Some things that I thought didn't come out quite right, and some things that I want to add in. So that's my next project. That's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, there's definitely going to be probably a Cinema Symbolism 4, some more fiction. We'll see.
Fantastic. Robert, always a delight. I'll speak to you on Coast in July. Looking forward to that.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. And again, thank you so much for having me on the Conspiracy Show tonight. It was my pleasure, and I look forward to Coast to Coast.
Fantastic. Robert W. Sullivan IV, Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult, Hollywood Unveiled. All right, back next week with another brand new program. Hope you'll be along for the ride. My thanks to Ryan and Carlos. In the meantime, don't be afraid. There's nothing concealed that won't be revealed, and nothing hidden that won't be made known. What you hear in the dark, speak in the light. What I say in a whisper, proclaim from the housetops. Move over, Aphrodite. I'm coming home. Good night.